I would make that trade. That's a trade that I would make. I would make that trade in a heartbeat. What was Ranger doing? Mason Raymond defensively has frankly been a liability, in my opinion, with the Leafs many times because of his inability to insert himself into a play. Why is he not closer into the goal at this point when Reimer's sprawling out, when the puck is loose? Get in there. Don't just sit around lollygagging. Get not just your stick. Don't just poke like you're a little girl. Go in, full body, make a play, go to the puck. Don't wait for it to magnetically suck onto your stick.
All this and more coming up on Leafscast.
I'll tell you what, if the Leafs could just trade all their games that they play the Boston Bruins and get to play the Florida Panthers instead, I would make that trade. That's a trade that I would make. I would make that trade in a heartbeat. You know, I'd even throw in a game with the Buffalo Sabres if it meant that we get to play the Florida Panthers one more time. Welcome to Leafscast. My name is Mark Paul. Really glad that you're listening to the show. If you haven't already heard, the Leafs have lost to the Boston Bruins 3-1 in what could be called one of the most boring games of all time. Maybe not quite. The Leafs actually did play pretty decent. I think they played the kind of game they wanted to, honestly. A team without Bozak and without David Bolland having to shift James Van Riemsdyk to center. And he actually did win percentage-wise. He was a little bit better tonight by 2 or 3 percentage points over from the game in New Jersey. In Toronto against New Jersey. And so JVR getting maybe a little bit better in the face-off circle, feeling a little more comfortable. Nevertheless, for every big draw, we just saw the Leafs bring Jared Smithson in. And he played like 8.5 minutes in the game, and I think between 2:30 and 3 minutes, they were spent on the penalty kill. So the rest of his 5 minutes were basically him coming in, taking a face-off, and skating as quickly as he could to the bench, which we all know isn't that quick. Unfortunately for Jared Smithson, the guy who's supposed to be this great penalty killer, and that's kind of his MO, the Leafs penalty killing really struggled in this game against the Bruins. The Bruins went 2 for 3 on the power play, which this is actually it's the third straight game the Leafs have given up a power play goal, and the penalty kill was almost, for the last several years, barring last year, it had always been this, oh my gosh, the Leafs, why can't their penalty kill be better? Like, we're 28th, 29th, even 30th in the NHL. Just couldn't figure out why it was so bad. And it's funny because we've actually taken some of the same, even personnel, and plugged them in, and they've managed to be better. But now the penalty kill and the expectation for the penalty kill is that we kill the penalty. Like, we are a good penalty killing team. And so when you see the Leafs go and give up 2 power play goals on only 3 opportunities to do so, now granted, one of those opportunities, I guess you would technically count it as 2 separate opportunities. There was a double minor to James Van Riemsdyk, but when you get the 4 minutes straight, it's a different kind of penalty kill than 2 separate penalty kills. We know that. Nevertheless, when you have to win a game on special teams, giving up 2 power play goals, you don't win very often when you give up 2 power play goals, and there's just no other way around it. So a bad start for the Leafs. They were really just running all over the place, and I'm gonna throughout the show I'm gonna throw out some comments that we received from my brother Luke. He's a big Leafs fan, and he wanted to get his thoughts thrown in here. So every now and then I'll throw one of his thoughts in that he had about the game. About the first period, he just said that they definitely played up to their past season's reputation of having no idea what to do against their opponent in the first period, and that really looked true. There was a point in the first period, I should just go back, watch it, and calculate the time, but I'm not going to. There was a spot where the Bruins, if you watch the game, they had the puck in the Leafs zone. It had to have been 2 minutes straight, 5-on-5, 2 minutes. It was crazy how sluggish the Leafs looked, and obviously I know they've been out there for at least a minute and a half or so, and so guys start to look sluggish, especially when the other team is cycling the puck so well and they're chasing. If you play hockey, you know that chasing the puck as opposed to controlling the puck is just detrimental to your endurance. I don't care how much endurance you have. If you have to chase the puck around as opposed to receiving it and cycling it, it is freaking exhausting. So the Leafs get caught in their own zone, and fortunately enough for them, they didn't allow a goal during that sequence, but the Leafs just did not come out very well in the first period. And really, even early on in the second period, they didn't look great. But about halfway through the second period, they turned it on. They started looking like the Leafs that we enjoy watching. Now, a team that still gives up some chances. Now, they actually, in the second period, they had quite a few shots on goal. They actually had 18 to be exact. The Leafs just pouring it on the Boston Bruins. Now, by the end of the game, the Leafs actually were, for once, actually for only the third time this year, they didn't get outshot. They tied in shots, 34-34. So actually a much higher output in shots for the Leafs, but Rask was where he should be all night. Tuukka Rask looked great. He's not. He does have an athletic ability to him, but he's very much a positional goaltender. He seems to always be in the right place at the right time, very much like Jonathan Bernier and Reimer. Reimer played very well. I mean, aside from Paul Ranger falling asleep on him and trapping his legs below him. Now, actually, I wanted to point something out because I'm all over Twitter and I'm talking to different people about that Paul Ranger play. So if you haven't seen the game, Paul Ranger he falls, he kind of gets bumped, but not really. Basically falls onto Reimer's legs as Reimer's reaching out to try and stop it. He does stop the first one, and another opportunity. Well, Ranger is still cuddling with Reimer at the net. The Bruins score a goal into an empty net. One thing you have to look for is that Louis Eriksson, he's the man planted in front of the goal. He's right with Ranger, and he actually, when Ranger falls, he actually pushes him down even more and holds him there. And so, Ranger, it almost seemed like he should have maybe gotten off of Reimer somehow, or at least looked like he was trying to get off of him. Louis Eriksson actually had him pinned down pretty good. Louis Eriksson definitely made that play much more difficult for Paul Ranger and for Reimer, and so sucks for the Leafs. But I guess as far as play goes for Louis Eriksson, the guy hasn't done much offensively on the score sheet, but he definitely helped the Bruins score that goal, and that goal was a turning point. That goal really turned things from the Leafs sustaining pressure and doing a pretty decent job on the power play, the 4-minute power play that they had because of Van Riemsdyk's high stick. But after that, it was like the Leafs gave up. And Luke, one of our listeners, comments, it was like the Leafs just decided that they couldn't win anymore. It was a turning point in the game, and in reality, if you watch the play, you might point at Paul Ranger and say, "Hey man, like what was Ranger doing, getting shoved by Louis Eriksson?" But then you take a step back and you look at Mason Raymond, who once again, I don't know why, but it seems like every time Mason Raymond is on the ice for a goal against, it's almost like he knows, I've been out of position for a minute. Sorry about that. I'm going to make it look like I'm trying. And he kind of does this little like stick hack poke, something that makes it look like he's invested defensively when really he's been lazy on the outside of the play and hasn't decided to actually move into where the puck is. And he just straight up failed to hustle to where the puck was at. If Mason Raymond had moved into position, he should have seen that his goaltender was down. He did, but he didn't make a movement to the puck where it was. He was hoping that it would squirt out to him. You can see he's like 5 feet away from the goal crease, hoping that the puck will slip out from the back of the net and that he can clear it. Now, the idea of clearing it, that's fine, but why is he not closer into the goal at this point when Reimer's sprawling out, when the puck is loose? Get in there. Don't just sit around lollygagging. Get not just your stick. Don't just poke like you're a little girl. Go in, full body, make a play, go to the puck. Don't wait for it to magnetically suck onto your stick. It's not going to happen. Mason Raymond defensively has frankly been a liability, in my opinion, with the Leafs many times because of his inability to insert himself into a play. And it's kind of driving me nuts. He's a water bug when he gets the puck, Now, sometimes on the penalty kill, that's a good thing because he does kill time occasionally, but I want to see Mason Raymond. I'm not saying I want to see him hit. I'm not saying I want him to be a different player. He is who he is. We know who he was when we got him. That's fine. But he's also a very fast player. So go to the puck. Don't wait for the puck. Create some space for yourself so that you can play defensively on the penalty kill. If you're going to play on the penalty kill, then you need to go to the puck when your goalie's sprawled out. Now, obviously, you're not always going to skate all the way to where the puck is, otherwise you'll get yourself caught out of position. But in this case, it was what he needed to do. He needed to make a play, and instead of moving his feet, he poked his stick forward. And we all know that doesn't work. It looks like the fifth grader trying to play hockey, and he's too gassed from his shift. I don't care. You're a professional. At least give a semblance of your feet moving a little bit so that it seems like you care. Now, one last comment from my brother Luke. He says this. He says, overall, the Leafs need to really learn to start strong in any game. And I totally agree with that. It's their biggest weakness and their biggest curse. We need a strong first period team. I absolutely agree. If the Leafs cannot start a game well, now, statistically speaking, if you don't score the first goal, you will lose more often than you will win. It's a statistic fact that when you score the first goal of a game, you win more often than you lose. And so by pure logic, if the Leafs can be a better first period team, they have a better opportunity to score that first goal. And by scoring that first goal, they open up the possibility of winning more often. And now it's not that they haven't been able to score the first goal at all. They've done that, and they've actually been a pretty effective comeback team as well when they haven't, but it's always going to pay off playing well in the first period. We know the Leafs can play in the third. We know that they'll turn it on in the second half of the game most of the time. The problem is that the way that they play, because they play this chance game where they say, we're generally speaking, obviously, not necessarily the case tonight. They had 34 shots on goal, but a lot of times when it's the 21 or 25 or the lower shot games that they have, they're risking things on, we're not going to take an additional 15 shots. We're going to wait for the perfect opportunity, and we're going to score when we take that shot. We're going to score at a high percentage. The problem with that is that if you don't score on those quality opportunities, you don't have many more to score on. You don't get as many opportunities in the way that they play. Now, their scoring percentage is high. Their shooting percentage is very high. But you have to expect slumps like this where, the Leafs, they have 2 goals in an actual gameplay. They beat the Devils 2-1, but one of them was a shootout goal. It doesn't really count. It counts for a win, but it doesn't count for an actual goal in the goal column for any individual player. So really, they've scored 2 goals in 3 games. And you have to expect that from them, that at some point the shooting percentage is going to drop and that a goalie, they're going to play a couple hot goalies and they're just not going to be able to score. And we're almost going to have to just accept that there's going to be some runs where the Leafs just don't score a ton. And especially right now, without Bozak and without Bolland and no Reilly in the lineup, because we wanted the bigger lineup. We wanted to have Paul Ranger, which now to Paul Ranger's defense, he was the reason that the Leafs scored. He made a really nice defensive play on Louis Eriksson, ironically, the guy who eventually causes him to get close with James Reimer. But he chips the puck away from him as he tries cutting in on goal, and then he chips the puck up the boards, gets it to Lupul. Lupul takes it coast to coast, and Rask's only mistake of the game was Lupul's goal, and it was a pretty nice shot nonetheless. And so Tuukka Rask, there's just not much you can say bad about him. He played a great game, but the Leafs, as a Leafs fan, you have to expect that eventually the Leafs are going to go through some struggles scoring, and I think we're seeing it. And so now it's a matter of adjusting. The fortunate thing is that the Leafs have until Wednesday now, so they've had 2 games where they get JVR at center, and they're using Smithson for 2 games, and they're able to rework and see how this is going to work. At least get a couple games under their belt, and now over the next 4 days, they can adjust in practice. I would expect. I have no evidence for this at this point. There's nothing out there saying that he's coming back, but I would expect that Morgan Reilly